Yes, welcome back to another installment of R/No Sleep. Today, we have the continuation from Bad Andy the Red. Title! Bloody numbers have been appearing on my hand. I think they're counting down to something. Appreciate all you guys sticking around, checking for updates. It's been a very busy situation. Trying to get caught up on a lot of stuff. I have multiple channels running. If you're interested in Magic the Gathering, there is Midgrid Magic. If you check that out, I'll put a link in the description. I am also building a bus. I don't know how else to explain that other than it's getting converted into an RV. It's a lot of work. I've been kind of taking my time with it, but it's been taking a lot of my time with me trying to take time with it. But we're going to go ahead and get back into this. We're going to start rolling out some more stories. I have some lined up. I also have a special announcement that I have started my own story and I've finished the first part of it, and I believe that I'm going to read it very soon and post the first part of it, see what you guys think. So stick around and thanks for the support. Without further ado, let's get into part 3. Let's get into it. The sun was starting to rise, and I managed to stagger out of the park and onto the street. I had no idea what to do now. Were the doctors and those men in the hazmat suits still looking for me? Was I infectious? I considered the bleeding woman who had grabbed me and how since then the bloody mark was counting down to some uncertain event. I had to figure out what was going on before it was too late. I decided to return home and tell Cassandra the truth. She was likely worried sick, and I honestly needed some help figuring out what to do next. Before heading back, I stopped by a small store to get a handkerchief to cover my mouth and some gloves. I still did not know what this was or if it spread, but I did not want Cass to get sick in case it was transmittable. I grabbed a taxi back home and staggered to the door. I was weirdly tired even after sleeping for almost an entire day. The fatigue was sudden and did not feel natural. Unfortunately, due to the strange fugue I was in, I did not notice the vehicles parked outside Cassandra's place until it was too late. When Cass answered the door, she nearly dropped her coffee. She rushed over to embrace me, but I pulled back and held out a hand. Wait, I think I'm sick. I don't know what is going on, but I need help, and things didn't go well at the doctor's office. I saw a troubled look on her face and something else that looked like it might be guilt. I know, I heard. Please listen, don't run. There are people here to help you. They said they were the only ones that could now. I looked past her into the house and saw the men in hazmat suits waiting for me. Then I spun around and saw more on the lawn. I looked back to Cass and she had a pleading look on her face. Please stay. Let them help. I'm scared and I don't want to lose you. I considered running, but when I saw her face and heard her plea, I couldn't. I decided to stay and I held up my hands. As the men approached me slowly, I felt a strange heat underneath my skin again. My head started to pound, and I swear I heard a chilling voice whisper to me, "No." Before I could stop myself, I spun round and started to move away. Cass grabbed my hand, and I instinctively pulled away, my nails scratching her hand in the process so badly I saw blood dripping from where I had torn free. She cried out, and my fear and guilt had almost overridden the impulse to flee from the situation, but I could not quell the overwhelming urge to run. I launched myself onto the yard and started sprinting away. I slipped past one of the men, and another had something in his hand I had not noticed at first. It was a taser, and he managed to aim and fire before I could get away. I fell to the ground, my body convulsing and the heat under my skin building to a breaking point. As the others rushed over to subdue me, I felt a tearing at my skin, and suddenly a blood-covered tendril whipped out from my hand and skewered one of the hazmat men through the faceplate and straight through his head. The horrible crunch of broken bone and sick tearing sound of mangled flesh broke me out of my primal urge to keep resisting, and I felt like I was going to pass out again. That concern was guaranteed when another shock followed by a poke in the arm with what was likely a tranquilizer ensured my loss of consciousness. I was not sure how much time had passed, but I woke up alone and cold in a bright room with no doors or way out that I could find. I would have been able to see better if I had not been strapped to a gurney. I could only see the scant details in the room beyond my own body and a few angles of the surroundings, but I figured I had been isolated here for study. I saw my hands were wrapped in a restraining brace, but I saw from the angle that what I could see, the shape of the bloody mark had changed yet again. The 6 had become a 5. And the fear and anxiety of what would happen at the end of the countdown pressed down on me again. I did not like that I was restrained, but I allowed myself to hope that maybe the people who had captured me would be able to help. If they couldn't, I was not sure what I could do. I heard a voice on an intercom in the room, and a harsh, static-laden voice spoke to me. "I'm sorry we had to resort to restraining you, but it has become clear that your passenger is not willing to come quietly. I know you have many questions, but time is short. You deserve to know what is happening, and I will tell you what I am allowed to disclose. But suffice to say, we have around 60 hours to figure this out, or something bad is going to happen to all of us." Passenger? I considered the implications and shuddered. I closed my eyes and tried to pretend that this was not happening. My fate was in the hands of whoever these people were, and my time was running short. Something was going to happen, and whatever that was feeling more horrible every minute. Part 4. I waited for hours at a time in between sessions of doctors and assistants coming into my room/cell and running diagnostics on me. Always taking blood samples and generally working around me, but not acknowledging my questions about who they were and what the hell was going on. All of the people working in the room would not identify themselves, and I had no idea what organization these people were really from. The lead doctor had been in several times to check on the progress of whatever work they were trying to accomplish. I had managed to overhear a whisper referring to the man as Dr. Stillman. I asked him again whenever he came back in to check on the latest blood test. What is happening to me? Where's Cassandra? Did you take her as well?" I could not read his face behind the protective gear, but there was a distressing pause, and he finally responded. "We are not sure. This is a novel process to us. We only just discovered this particular strain, and it is quite aggressive. That is why we had to take such direct and immediate action to quell whatever trouble this thing could cause. I am afraid that this is all I can tell you at the moment. Unfortunately for you and a few others, the cause and cure for this affliction has to be discovered at any cost. The rights of a few people may have to be trampled on slightly for the greater good." I asked again, disturbed by the answer, more so than non-answer to the other part of my question. "Where is Cass? Did you take her as well? What are you going to do?" There was a silence, and Stillman looked at his watch and turned to leave. Before I could shout the question again, he looked back at me as he was leaving the room and cut me off. "She was likely contaminated by your last encounter with her. She is being looked after by our staff and monitored for symptoms, but anyone who comes in contact with these things cannot be allowed to roam free." He walked out of the room, and the staff departed with him, leaving me alone with silence and despair of the situation. I felt guilty and sick. I had cut Cass when I tried to leave, and now I had gotten her sick too. What were they going to do with her? As I began to spiral, I felt the wave of heat in my body rise again. I tried to calm myself down, but it felt like something was going to break free from my skin. I I strained against my restraints, and this time, as I writhed, I felt an odd sensation of quiet come over my mind, and the room was still. Then a creeping whisper was heard in the back of my mind. I froze as I realized it was speaking to me. "One of our blood. Leave now." My mind raced and my skin prickled at the ominous voice speaking into my mind. Even if I wanted to follow the instructions of the creepy voice, I had no means to break out. I suddenly felt like I was not alone in the room, yet the door had not opened. I heard scratching on the glass of the window and saw a disturbing outline of a figure through the shrouded glass. Then I heard a terrible squishing sound, like someone wading through the muck and grime, and even worse things. I tried to move and couldn't. Then I felt sick, very sick. I felt a bulge welling up in my throat, and before I could stop myself, I spat out a glob of blood that landed near my hand, and to my surprise and horror, it started to move. I felt a bit of pain and heard a hissing sound, and then was amazed when my range of motion had increased. I felt the restraints loosen and then fall off completely, and I heard the ragged sound of breath coming from something in the room that did not sound like it possessed human lungs. I was free, but too scared to move. I started to think maybe I shouldn't leave. Whatever this was could be too dangerous to be let out, but I thought of Cassandra and everything that had happened, and I felt the urge to leave again, to find her and get her back. The compulsion overrode my fear and concern without looking at the disturbing figure in the room who had set me free. I burst out of the room in a run. I managed to knock the door down in my flight. Despite being barred from the outside, I had managed to break it down with minimal effort, and as I sprinted through the hall, my ears started to ring and my conscious thought began to fade to the point where it felt like I was dreaming. I kept moving, and as the feeling became so distant, I thought I would fall asleep on my feet, like I was fully in autopilot in my own body. I dimly remember 2 scientists trying to stop me. Worse still, I remember how much I seemed to enjoy the taste of their blood and the feeling of tearing them apart. Yes, it was a vivid nightmare, but the nightmare was only beginning. The sound of a blaring alarm knocked me back to my senses, and I looked down at the medical gown I had been wearing. It was torn and covered in blood. Before I could react in the proper horror to the scene before me, the voice in my head spoke again. "We are not here. She is not here. Bring us together soon. Go." I had no idea what I had done or what was happening. I only knew that the voice was right and that Cass was gone. The path behind me was covered in blood, and I knew it was not my own. I had done something monstrous, but I did not care just then. I only knew I had to leave. I had to find her. I left the building in short order and stepped out into the morning sun. The light reflected off the bright sheen on my skin that showed the bloody mark resembling a 4 now. 4 days left to find Cass and find a way to stop whatever was going to happen to us. I'm digging the story. Really liking this one. There's a couple more parts. I believe there's 6 parts. That was part 3 and 4. I'll probably do 5 and 6 in another video. I appreciate everyone out there that is listening still. I apologize for the delay in stories. You know, life sometimes takes over, but we're going to work on getting back into a steady progression of releases on these. If you guys have anything that you've read that you think would be awesome to hear in audio form or me just narrating it, let me know what it is. I'll reach out to the author and see if I can get permission to do it. There's a lot of really good writers out there. I appreciate everybody working with us. I think we all feed off of positive reinforcement, correct? Like, I have a couple of really, really awesome people that follow me on this channel that are very dedicated to watching every single thing that I put out, and I really, really appreciate that. It makes it feel like you're doing something and being at least rewarded somewhat. It's hard to do something over and over and over again with no results, and YouTube is kind of structured like that. It's a tough thing to push through. Please like, please share, please subscribe if you can. It helps. I would love to do this full time. Again, I thank you all. I am the Meekry Masochist. Farewell.